So now, without further ado, we would like to start a brief panel discussion to summarize and recap all the elements that have been addressed in this session of the workshop. The moderator of the panel discussion will be Dr. Hosni Ghadira from Masdar Institute. And I would like to call the panelists to the stage, please, to join us. All right, Mohammed Al-Kaabi, Dr. Taha Warda from the iWater Center, Geoff Thomas, Dr. Al-Ghais, and Engineer Wissam Al-Qasadli from DOT. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. And thank you for staying as late as now for Thursday afternoon. I will try to make it brief. So we're supposed to start, we are 15 minutes behind schedule, so we'll try to finish hopefully on time around 5 p.m. My name is Hosni Ghadira. I am the head of the Chemical Environmental Engineering Department at Masdar Institute. I'm also directing the Research Center for Renewable Energy Mapping and Assessment. I'm working closely with Dr. Marwan on the Earth observation in the marine environment, and his team that gave their talks this afternoon. To start the panel, I would like to introduce the panelists. I think we can start with Sir Mohammed Al-Kaabi.
Mohammed Al-Kaabi from the Office of His Highness, Deputy Supreme Commander of UAE Armed Forces. I'm also the Director of Maritime Security Executive Committee.
Saif Al-Ghais is working? Yeah. Saif Al-Ghais, just I've seen you.
Taha Warda, Professor at Masdar Institute and Head of the Water and Environmental Center.
Geoff Thomas, Manager Deltara's Middle East Gulf area.
Wissam Qazdali, Maritime Engineer in Department of Transport.
So great. So we have a diversified panel covering from academia, from government, expert in the field of maritime environment. And also we have Dr. Saif that has both academia and also this is very active in the Environment Authority in Ras Al Khaimah. They can bring this nexus between R&D and how the end user can benefit from the research. So the main topic that I want to cover in this panel is about how we can find best strategy for disseminating research or R&D fundings and how government agency and decision makers could benefit from those fundings. So we know that the research culture, it's new. We know that UAE University started with doing research more than 2 decades now, but still the dissemination of the research funding directed to end user is still new for a government agency and end user. What's the best strategy that we can come up through after those presentations? We have seen students presenting their work and interesting work, and we have one interesting question from the audience about, okay, so it's good research, but how the end user, how we can benefit of it? Okay, you are detecting hubs, but how you can disseminate this information to end users? It's true they are doing good science, but how we can benefit, how the government agencies, how the stakeholders can take advantage of those fundings. I think I opened this question for the panel just to have their feedback and inputs based on their experience, especially our panelists that are active. They have some active role of some government agencies, how we can take advantage of this new R&D culture in the country to end user and to government agencies. Mohammed, so we can start.
Well, I think we started with the Abu Dhabi Maritime Strategy, and this was in 2009. Our work is exactly focusing on how to create a balance. We have different agencies, like, for example, the security agencies, the environmental agencies, whether it is local in Abu Dhabi or is within the Emirates. And also we have the waterways management group, the preparedness and response group. But the issue is still, those groups are not being supported by the research, and which we need we need the assistance from an institute like Masdar Institute, from the UAE University, from also non-governmental organization who's doing those kind of research. The reason why, because some of our groups dealing with regulations, and regulation has to be supported by the research. And research means statistics, research means facts. This is what exactly we need. And that's why one of our key stakeholder also, Masdar, UAE University, to provide this kind of assistance to support, the work of our groups.
Good. So, Dr. Saif, do you have any?
Well, I guess I'm going to add to that. There is a lot of work in UAE, but it's scattered everywhere. So it would be much, better and wise if we have a focal point for the marine environment, such as a marine research center or such as a marine station. In UAE, for example, UAE have a very unique marine environment in the Gulf and outside in the Arabian Sea, which is in the Sea of Oman. But unfortunately, for example, we don't have even a research vessel to carry on research on the marine environment. Because the marine environment, for example, needs somebody to look at the physical oceanography, chemical oceanography, and biological oceanography. And all these things is being scattered here and there. So I think we should really focus, get all this effort in one basket, and it will be much easier for everybody.
Do you feel that in your presentation you have shown very exciting research in terms of even turtles, of species? So based on your experience, are you satisfied with how the research outcome has benefited decision makers in terms of regulation, as mentioned by Sir Muhammad?
Well, I am not into the decision making. I am more of, I would call myself more into the research. And all researchers all over the world, they will just do their research and give their result, and it's up to the higher decision maker to take a decision in that, and protecting a species or protecting a seabed or a coastal area upon what they get from the researcher.
Yeah.
And the researcher now, they are scattered everywhere. The UAE University or in all the Emirates, let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. Each Emirate is doing part here and there, and they should really put them all together. In that way, even as funding for that will be much cheaper. This is the way how I see it.
Okay. So I think, Dr. Taha, also, given your experience, international experience with different research institutes worldwide, so how you can see other experiences, can we take advantage from them here in terms of dissemination of research, especially in the environmental sector, in the maritime sector?
I'm going to disagree a little bit with you, actually. You said that we have established a culture of research. I'm not sure we have done that. I think
we are in the process. This is my...
Yeah, we're in the process. In a research culture, basically, first of all, the information circulates. People, the stakeholders are aware of the resources that are available in academia, and the researchers in academia are aware of the problems and the challenges that basically we have to face, and that's not happening yet. It takes workshops like this one for us to discover each other. The other thing is we still live basically in a situation where the reality is when there is a challenge, the stakeholders reach out to consultants. They don't go to academia. So it's an uphill battle, actually. There is a lot of work to do to establish a real research culture. We're working on it, I think.
It takes time. I think next, Jeff would be well placed to, he's representing the consultancy side, but we know that Deltar is also very active in R&D and also in associated university in Delft there and Netherlands. So how you, based on your experience here in the region, how you can see that future interaction between consultancy-based activities and academia here in the country?
Yes, I think in the Netherlands and at Deltares, we've made our biggest steps forward when we've shared our information. And I think that's a huge challenge to make, especially in a developing context where you're developing your knowledge or research is just starting. The application of research and the application of knowledge, it's vital to share information, ideas, exchange, and then you make the biggest moves forward, the biggest steps forward. The knowledge within research needs to be nurtured, looked after, fed with funds, with good students, with good ideas, but the knowledge can be made accessible through good software and sharing ideas. And when the consultants can then come along and share and take from this body of knowledge, it can be, you have some confidence that it's a reliable body of knowledge because it's shared. The confidence wanes when the knowledge is held and used in many different projects by different consultants. You can't easily get a feel for the level of confidence in the application. So sharing the knowledge, bringing everybody up to a certain capability level where we're all confident of the results, I think is the way forward for the research community and the consultant community.
So it was about like capacity building here in the country.
Capacity.
So Wissam, do you have any inputs to this, since you are in touch with many consultants, I think, in the field, and also do you have an interaction with academia here from the DUT point of view?
Well, I would just mention that I heard many people saying that, okay, we did the research, but we don't really know what to do next. It's not under our jurisdiction, which is somehow right. So definitely we needed to improve the link between the researcher and the government representative to take action in adequate time. But I would recommend at the same time that the researcher also try to find solution to the actual issues with more communication with stakeholders. I mean, okay, it's not enough to make research, but maybe it's better to find also someone who has a problem and he's looking for a solution. So the researcher will be here to find the solution for an actual problem, and the government or any other interested in this research will be waiting for the solution itself. So maybe it will be more proactive approach with earlier communication.
Okay, so I think the question of how you have to give more importance to more pure scientific research than like more practical and operational research, that you can, is tangible outcome, so you can see the final product and you can attract some attention from decision makers about it. I think if you have any comments or inputs from the audience about this topic, so it's open discussion, so if you have any question, any comments. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like just to follow up, Patchi, three of you have all mentioned about capacity building in one form or another, whether it's a center of excellence for marine science. Where in the Gulf can you actually study marine science as an undergraduate?
Dr. Saif.
Where to study
Marine science at undergrad level.
Undergraduate?
I think UAE University, they have
UAE
program.
University, but it is not a BSc degree, but it will be under the environmental track. In the biology department, there is two tracks. One of them is environmental track, where the student will take about, if I remember, at least 4 courses in the marine science. And in the master program, some of the students, who they come from an engineer background or biology or chemistry, they could study, carry on a project in marine science. Yeah.
And also NYU Abu Dhabi is starting a new environment science program with special focus on marine science.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware if they started already. Taha, are you aware of this? They started already at NYU Abu Dhabi? No, I heard about it.
But if I may say something, but the area of marine, as everybody knows, it is hard work. So many of the students, they try to
avoid it.
avoid it. Not all of them, but I say many of them. So they don't want, for example, to deal with fish because they smell bad. They don't want to be in the boat because they get dizzy. And you know it.
Other question from the audience? So this question is for Dr. Taha and Dr. Saif about how you, from the academia point of view, how you can find the balance from pure science research, because you know that university are a professor, they are working to publish their work, and their work, they need some depth in science in their research, but sometimes the outcome of research, the government or the end user, they don't see a direct benefits. How you can find the balance between pure and in-depth research and operational research to fit the urgent need or the urgent requirement from the funding agency or the source of funding that is available here in the country?
Yeah, in general, the balance really stems from the fact that you need the fundamental research to establish your credibility internationally, to position yourself, basically, to establish your name and the name of your lab. And you need the applied research to get the funding, because funding is more available on the applied side. And that's where usually in other environments the balance is stricken. Basically, it's through the output and the funding, and you play the game on both sides. That's harder to do over here. Over here, I think one of the first things that need to be done is to create incentives for stakeholders to work with academia. In other countries, that happens naturally because every company, every agency, they get even tax credits when they give funding to academia. There are natural incentives that are established through the tax system, through the funding system by the government. Over here, it's not the case. So we need to find a way to create those incentives that will establish the link. And then the balance is going to come from basically fitting the pieces together. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Saif also.
Yeah, I guess I will say, yep, the problem here is the funding for research. A lot of the places, they expect the result before they fund you. So that is impossible. And exactly, and it did happen to me personally. I did submit one time a research project, everything approved in it, with the boat and everything, but the fuel, they said to me, no. So I said, I'm going to use the boat then, if there is no fuel for it. So understanding the need of research, and especially, I will say, in the marine environment, it is field work. It requires a lot of field work, and the field work is different than doing some lab work or so. Even though I personally did get some fund from Total, Abu al-Bukhush, from Shell Middle East for starting the Digong project here in Abu Dhabi, and I started the Marine Turtle project back in '97 from Shell Abu Dhabi and Shell Middle East, Dubai, but it is still very difficult, very difficult.
Okay, so to return back to the topic of this workshop, the environmental sensing and maritime ecosystem monitoring. So given here the fragile ecosystem in the region, so we know that most of the fresh water in the country coming from desalination plants, and all the intakes are exposed to high risk of pollution from algae, from oil spills, given the geographic position of the UAE on the route of trade route of oil, more than 11 million barrels per day navigate through the Hormuz Strait. So the risk of oil spill is too high, and also the impact on desalination plants also is too high. And given the recent frequency of algae activities and the red tide in the region, that in some cases, as was presented by one of the students this afternoon, to shut down desalination plants, how the impact of this on the populations. And also, Dr. Saif showed some slide about the fish industry here. We know that now we have very intensive and commercial fish farming, and how the fish farms, in one side affecting the environment, also are vulnerable to this kind of accidental pollutions. So given on those special condition of the region, how you see the direction of activity and research? What area that you feel that you have to focus more to adapt it to the real challenge facing the region? Can we start with Mr. Mohammed?
I think the destruction of the maritime environment for the last maybe 3 decades, since exporting of oil, there are more, there is significant destruction. But what we have done to preserve, the maritime environment so far? Yes, there are regulations, there are rules, and there are some efforts is done, individually by some entities, but that's not enough. One of the initiative, the Kuwait initiative I think in the 78, to establish the regional organization for protection of maritime environment, that was one of the reason or one of the response to get the maritime environment back to its original, not to its original, but at least to save what was disrupted. I think the way forward is very slow. I know we are all connected by this huge mass of water, whether it is in the region or it is connected through the ocean. I'll go back again to the research center. Why don't we establish the center of excellence that connected to all other research centers in the world? Yes, we are facing the same challenges. Maybe in the region, within the Gulf, or maybe in the other region of other Gulf, or maybe the seas. We get the best practices and what are the actions have been taken so that we can implement it here in the region. The lady was talking about, the plastic regulations in California. One of the best practices, why don't we use it maybe here to resolve issue like, the throwing the plastic bags or plastic material into the water. Same goes with our security-wise and as you mentioned, the desalination plant. We depend upon, our water from this desalination plant. If those plants are shut down, then what will happen? And we have to touch the wound. The wound is why this plant was shut, because if there is a problem happening. Yeah. From where? From the maritime. If we know the problem, that is a disaster. Or if we don't know that there is a problem, that is a disaster. But if we know it, that is a catastrophe. In Arabic we say إذا كنت لا تعلم فتلك مصيبة وإذا كنت تعلم فالمصيبة أعظم. The problem is that we know there is a problem. The issue here, why we are neglecting this, or why we are moving slow. So we need to take, step forward, whether it is, the regulations, whether it is scientific part, or these efforts has to be, collectively happening. And I know there are ways to do it, but it is very slow. We need to expedite or speed up this kind of process, I think.
Great. Dr. Saif, do you want to add something on the challenge?
Repeat the question because I was looking at something.
Okay, it's fine. So just to go, Dr. Taha, given your recent activity interaction with the water resource management in the region, so what's area that you feel? So I know that also you're active in the food.
Question now, yeah.
You get it, okay.
Yes. Mainly, I think we need to understand the ecology of the marine environment. That's missing. Also, we need a lot of work to understand the ecology of the marine environment. Our main sector in the marine environment for the UAE is fishery. And fishery, I might be biased a little bit because I came up from a fishery background, but I will say fishery should take priority number one. And that cannot be achieved unless we understand the ecology of the marine environment.
Okay, great. So Taha, just the chair of the workshop asked me to to wrap up in 2 minutes. So in 1 minute, so how, so given your exposure to different stakeholders in the oil, in the water, energy and food nexus here in the region, and the maritime also environment, how you, given this exposure, so what direction you feel that we should take as academician for in the maritime side?
I agree with my colleague, actually. I believe it's the ecology. You cannot really separate it from the other aspects, from the modeling, from the biology and all. Good work on understanding the species availability, basically all the census about the size, the numbers and all, is going to be extremely important, at least as a descriptive study of what's available, what's the current status, so that we know where we were and where we're moving. I think that's going to be very supportive, because we seem sometimes to be navigating in the dark.
Yeah, so
but I definitely agree that the ecology would be the driver.
Yeah, so having a clear picture of the status, of the current status of conditions is very important. It's a starting point for any serious research in this field. So Jeff, do you have any comments, additions to what was said by the panelists?
Yeah, I think as an outsider, I've been surprised.
So you are no longer outsider, so...
At the moment, I'm not, and that's how I plan to stay. But what I observe is the funding is disproportionately small towards research in the marine environment. It's not getting nearly enough attention. It needs a lot stronger funding. We need to use that funding for education at all levels, from school through colleges, through universities. We need sharing of our tools and our knowledge and our data. And I don't mean within one emirate, I mean across the emirates. It's vital that any barriers between emirates or between sharing, that prevent sharing of data and knowledge and tools are removed. And these are some of the really fundamental things that have to happen. Of course, the eventual goal will be ecology, improvement, sustainability, and preservation. But it's going to start, I'm afraid, with a lot more attention to funding, in my opinion.
Clear. So Wissam, any closing point? Thank you. I think, as stressed by most of our panelists, the sharing data and having access to the data is one key also to have any progress in research. So I think time's up. Any comment? Yes, go ahead, please.
So literally at the last minute, one word from each of you. So if you were looking for funding for a good research project in Abu Dhabi, where would you go?
That was a tricky one.
I think Masdar. We're talking about, the capacity here. I mean, we're not looking for something from scratch. We have to look to the existing. If the existing, then it is, Masdar.
Dr. Saif?
I will second that.
How could I disagree with that?
No, I think we should look at the concerned sector who really have interest in the marine environment, and they should fund research.
I think ADEC, Abu Dhabi Education Council, is setting up now research funding agency similar to NSF in the US and other funding agencies that will be established soon. But so far, if I share with you experience of Masdar Institute, so our faculty, some of our faculty were successful in approaching government agencies to proposing research. But the issue here, we know that the government agency, they have the money, but they don't have a system to evaluate a research proposal. So I think some of our research are paving the way I know that Dr. Taha is not agreeing with me about building this culture of R&D and convincing decision makers in government to start funding research, because it's strong capacity building. So we can hire a consultant to do the job. We know that they have the experience, but you can pay more and invest more time, but you have very strong capacity building for the country. You can train local students, and you know that you'll be sustaining the knowledge, not having a consultant doing one project maybe Jeff is not agreeing with me, but,
He's not happy.
it's very important to invest. And this is one of the mission of Masdar Institute is capacity building. And we are setting a target, even for our student recruitment, to have 50% local student versus 50% international students, because we believe that even having this mixture between national and international student, it creates the climate also for the local student to interact and to work in this international environment. Any other question from the audience? Okay, thank you. So I think
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank Dr. Hosni for moderating this great panel discussion. All the panelist members also for the great input and thoughts. I would like to thank you again. I think this is a great and protective workshop. It should be the first workshop, and we should, inshallah, have more of this. I mean, more to come. We are building momentum. This is the first, but I'm sure that we'll attract more attention, more participants in the second workshop, inshallah, with all the support that we are getting from the Crown Prince Office, Raid Mohammed Al-Kabi, Dr. Al-Ghis, and all the others. We greatly appreciate their support, and we look forward for more and to deliver what you are expecting from us. So just to conclude, I would like to thank you again, and I would like to invite everybody to the stage for a group picture. I know many left already because it's a bit late, but I would like to invite at least the remaining participants in the room for a group picture before you go, and we look forward for further interaction with you. Thank you very much. Really.